Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
What is up, everyone, and welcome into the Beneath the Waves podcast, your back to weekly recap of all things Seattle hockey and beyond. I'm Matt.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Derek.
It is episode 65 of the BTW pod, and we've been on a little bit of a hiatus. You know, I was dealing with some family stuff. Derek was out there crushing some law school things. Alex has been debating if he wants to go back to being a Leafs fan after they rigged the lottery. So we had a little time to ourselves. We've reset stuff, but we're back in the Kraken mindset. We need to take a little mental break before we had a mental breakdown. So we are back here ready to recap the season that was. On today's episode, we're going to check in on the Kraken and Torrent news that has happened since we were last all together. And we're also going to break down our top 5 Seattle hockey stories of this season. Now, Derek, although we have not been podding, you and I have been grinding away in the old BTW HQ since we took our break. So why don't you let the folks know what kinds of things we have been cooking up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, first of all, I just want to say Beneath the Waves, this offseason we're using as an absolute launch pad. Yes, the Kraken have been stagnant and they have been mid, but here at BTW HQ, we are doing everything we can to deliver the best product possible to both the Kraken and the Torrent fan base. A peek behind the curtain here, okay? Matt does all of the editing, all of the production, most of the tweeting on all of the and other social media posting on Beneath the Waves accounts, writes out the pod notes, etc. Alex amplifies our tweets with his massive Kraken Canada account and stirs the pot over there as well and contributes his wealth of NHL fan experience here on the pod. And I do pretty much nothing besides the graphic designing and, you know, reading out expected goal numbers here on the podcast until now. Okay. I have designed version 1.0 of the official Beneath the Waves website. You can find us at btwsea.com. There you can see all of our episodes. You can buy our merch that Matt designs while high on allergy meds, find all of our social media accounts with much, much more to come in the future. We want that website to be the best Kraken and Torrent fan experience possible. And also stay tuned for official Beneath the Waves articles, which will be starting this offseason with game recaps to come at the start of next season, hopefully. We do all of this with you, the listener, in mind, and truly want to deliver the best possible experience for you, especially while the team we all support is stuck being perpetually mid. So go check out the site. Let us know your thoughts on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, wherever you like to spend your time. And absolutely stay tuned for massive, huge developments in the BTW world. And to further, but hopefully not belabor this point, we have also committed to making graphic content on a daily basis if the amount of Seattle hockey news permits us to do so.
Graphic content as in pictures on socials, not graphic content as in there will be a censor warning.
All of our posts are going to be blurred, redacted.
Yeah, Derek and I have just been cooking away. I said to Derek today we need to make a Google Cal just for our scheduling of posts and all these things because it's just basically our text messages or sticky note threads of just random shotgun blasts of information. So check out that website. It's pretty cool. We're doing tweaks and little things as we go, but it is pretty sweet for both browser and mobile. So you can take your BTW with you on the go. One of those things that you can find on the site is if you click the little Seattle Torrent tab that's at the top, it'll redirect you to our good pal Heather's articles over at the Hockey News. So all of her stuff is going to be curated there. You can go in, follow along with her articles, post-game recaps and insights and stuff like that. That'll be sort of our hub, at least for now, of Seattle Torrent content. But we are also going to do some Torrent talk around these parts. The Torrent's quest for the gold plan unfortunately came up short since we wrapped up, as they lost the first overall pick in the upcoming draft to the Vancouver Golden Knights in a tiebreaker. The Torrent finished their inaugural season in last place with a record of 8-1-5-16. Remember, they have the 3-2-1-0 scoring system. There is still no word on where the Torrent will pick in the draft, but hopefully that's going to come real soon here. One thing that we do know is there's going to be a little shakeup behind the bench as on Friday, GM Meg Turner announced that the team was going to be parting ways with head coach Steve O'Rourke. The hunt is already underway for a new bench boss with many vacancies open around the league. And I say many vacancies because in our hiatus, we also learned that the PWHL is going to be expanding to 12 teams. They're going from 8 to 12 for the 26-27 season. The new markets that were announced over a couple of weeks were Detroit, Las Vegas, Hamilton, and San Jose. Detroit is also going to be the home of the draft, which is taking place on June 17th. And the PWHL also announced their very complicated sounding expansion process, which is going to be carried out in 5 phases beginning on June 2nd. That first phase, coming up right away here, will involve each existing team selecting 3 players to protect. And like I said, it is quite the process. So if you head over to the Hockey News, there's lots of articles that break it down to more bullet point form. You don't need a flow chart to figure it all out. But the thing to know is that by the end of this process, each existing team will have 6 protected or signed players and will lose a maximum of 4. And while convoluted, the league did say that they came up with this format to give players a little more say and choice in where they would end up versus last year when it was Seattle and Vancouver and teams were just absolutely gutted savagely. So, on the PWHL front, any thoughts, takes on either the state of the torrent or those new markets that are rolling in starting next season?
Gotta love the expansion. The fact that, we went from 8 teams to, 12 teams is huge. And you can see the demand, not only in Canada, but also the US. It's definitely something to be excited about. I'm pretty excited to see another team, be brought in Ontario. Hamilton is going to be a great team, competitive team here on the East Coast as well as Detroit. And like Las Vegas is going to be another team that's going to be benefiting quite well as San Jose. So it's an exciting time. Yeah, trying to read the initial process on how the expansion draft is going to take place was, as Matt mentioned it, pretty wild and confusing. But once I kind of dug in a little bit deeper into it, it started to make much more sense. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Starting next week. But yeah, exciting times in the world of women's hockey.
Yeah, on the torrent front, sucks ass that didn't get the gold plan because that's really all we could cheer for like pretty much like all season. But and then parting ways with Steve O'Rourke. I mean, I've heard good things about Coach Steve. I think it's Seattle hockey tradition at this point. You got to cycle through like 3 or 4 coaches, and then maybe you'll stick with one for a year. But I'm glad they're shaking stuff up because this year was pretty bad for like the level of talent that the Torrent had. Be interesting to see what kind of level of talent they'll have after the hopefully like you said, less intrusive gutting of their team this year for the expansion draft. Guess we'll have to wait and see. But I am excited for like as this league grows and grows and grows. Like so when it goes from like 12 to 16 or whatever, all those 12 teams are going to be hurt like way less than the 6 were last year, and everyone was complaining about how bad that was. As far as the 4 new teams, Hamilton and Detroit are the ones that I'm the most excited about, mainly just because of how their color schemes work. Like Hamilton's is sweet, but really Detroit I think has the best in the entire league already.
So black, white, red is pretty sharp.
Oh yeah. You can't go wrong. You just cannot go wrong with those colors. Absolutely not. But yeah, exciting stuff in the PWHL world, and hopefully next year some more exciting stuff with the Torrent world.
Yeah, I am very eagerly awaiting to see who we choose to protect. My picks, if I were in GM MT's shoes, I would go Hillary Knight because you got to lock down the star, especially with her saying that she wants to be around for at least 2 more seasons. I would do Hannah Bilka because she was a big time star, and I would put my eggs in the Hannah Murphy basket to lock down a goaltender of the future.
Yep.
And I don't know, that might be a hot-ish take for some people because I'm seeing people like, oh, we got to protect Alex Carpenter, we got to protect Kayla Barnes, these big stars. But I think we got to get a future locked up, and Hannah Murphy's kind of turned out to be quite the stud in between the pipes. So we'll just have to wait and
Yeah.
see.
Hmm.
Three quick pieces of Kraken news that we received while we were away. First is that assistant coach Jessica Campbell will be leaving the team next season. With her contract expiring this season, she decided to explore her options with other teams. It's no surprise that the story of Coach Jess has been one of our favorites through the Kraken's very short history. So we, of course, are going to wish her all of the best in her future endeavors, wherever that might take her. What were your reactions to that Coach Jess news?
I was confused. Like, if I'm going to be honest, because I feel like I'm going to be echoing this all off season at this point. This franchise isn't really making a lot of like smart decisions, in my opinion. Like, if they're it's seemingly like they're talking about cleaning house, but then they're not cleaning house. And it seemed like, Coach Jess was a thing that it was a was an asset that they were willing to let go. But it also seemed like she wanted to go as well and kind of like see what is also out there for all different opportunities, so to
Yeah,
speak.
exactly. Yeah.
So in the sense of like, losing her as an assistant coach, it sucks, but I don't think she was being utilized in the way that she should have been utilized. So with that, hopefully she can find get a gig that is more catered to her craft. And that usually that's in development. I've noticed that she's really good with developing and such like that. So if that's something that she needs, she ends up doing, then that's awesome. I'm going to be honest. I kind of wink, wink, nudge, judge. Wonder if she's going to be a contender for the head coaching position with the Torrent. I'm wondering, like, that would be kind of interesting to see if that kind of unfolded. So, not saying it's going to happen, but I'm intrigued with that. But it's a shame to see Coach Jess leave, but wish her nothing but the best in her future.
Yeah, I mean, quite simply, it like Coach Jess and the Kraken just weren't a good enough fit. It is unfortunate because she was a great coach to have around, and as Alex said, really good with development. Unfortunately, this team has just been so bad for so long now that you have to have like you have to add as much as you can to like support the team, and you can't really have as much of like, oh, this person's good at like development because they are locked into like a we need to make the playoffs mode. um and yeah, it just was not working with Coach Jess and the Kraken, and it seemed sort of like a mutual parting of ways. So it does suck, but it's it it didn't really feel like one side or the other was necessarily like at fault here. It felt more like both kind of understood that this wasn't the greatest fit. And yeah, I absolutely agree. We all hope that Coach Jess finds an amazing position somewhere. Go be head coach of like a great NHL team and win a million Stanley Cups and prove all the haters wrong. Um, but yeah, we all love Coach Jess.
Yeah. Secondly, one piece of Kraken news that came out in the last week or so was that once Montreal knocked Tampa Bay out of the Stanley Cup playoffs, we learned that the Kraken's bonus first round pick that we got from that Bjorkstrand Gord trade last season will have us drafting at number 7 and number 25 in the first round this year. Do you think both of those picks are made, or do you think J Boss starts cooking up something and wringing his hands like the gif of the guy behind the tree, and we package one of these up into some sort of way to bump us up the ladder or get some other piece?
So I don't think we're going to be drafting seventh. I think we're going to be drafting higher.
Really?
I honestly think
That would be exciting.
so. Just from where I've been listening to, like, Elliot Friedman mentioned that he wouldn't be shocked to see the Kraken, trade that pick, whether that be for, you know, um, a current roster player, like a higher, like skilled player, or perhaps potentially packaging that pick with a player to get a higher pick. Something like that wouldn't shock me. Um, I think the Kraken are in a position that they're desperate, and I would not be shocked if that is one of the things that happen. I wouldn't be shocked if we stay at 7 and we draft a defenseman at this point, because I feel like ultimately, if we keep that pick, it's going to be defenseman because that's what we need. But part of me wonders if they're going to find a way to get a higher pick, because I know that there's been talks that the Sharks have been contemplating trading their second overall pick,
That would be
and that
amazing if we got second
Chicago's been
overall.
Chicago's been talking about their fourth. Like there's two pieces there, but ultimately I wonder, if you're going to trade for that second, hypothetically, you're trading your seventh, and I'm going to be honest, I think you dangle someone like Vince Dunn, like to acquire that. Like that's what it's going to take. But I'm going to remain optimistic. I think we're going to trade it.
So yeah, I saw tequila or whatever, the three L's tequila. Huge on Kraken Twitter. If you go on Kraken Twitter, tequila. So shout out to tequila. But
Your drinking choice tonight, isn't it?
tequila was talking about how, yeah, if they were the Kraken GM, they would consider, like, I think Matt might have sent this to me. Consider, like, trading Vince Dunn and I think like the seventh overall to get like the second overall. I'm like, yo, like I low key would that, like, that honestly might, it could in a universe be worth it. I'm not sure. But Stenberg looks pretty sweet, and I would not be complaining if we had Stenberg. A lot of people are also complaining about how Vince Dunn has allegedly not really fit into the Lane Lambert system. There are a lot of gaffes that he engaged in last year. I mean, I can think of like five, including one I saw, or a few I saw in person too, like just off the top of my head. Very offensively talented defenseman though, which is a hot commodity. So you could definitely move him to a team. I don't know. I feel like there isn't a lot of precedent for trading to very high picks in the NHL, but that would be super exciting if possible. Where we stand now, I think it is likely that we'll use both picks and take two defensemen in the first round. Um, According to mock drafts, the seventh pick is likely to be a defenseman, whether it's Carson Karls, Keaton Verhoff, or Albert Schmitz. And we got to add to the decor. It's aging, and it's aging fast, and we have solid offensive prospects that are rising the ranks in Cat and O'Brien. I mean, we even have guys like we also have OFM. We have guys like Raycop that are going to be developing in the next couple of years too. And for the 25th pick, the New York Times has the Kraken selecting William Hawkinson of the SHL. He's a 6'4", 210-pound defenseman who is not very offensively talented at all. He's just like a really big body that we can have on the decor. But the New York Times, they suggest that it would be good to add some size to our prospect pool for the Kraken, because there isn't a lot of size there. I mean, when you just think of the Kraken prospect pool defenseman, you think of Jugnoth, Ty Nelson. You also think of Dragicevic. All these guys are like almost the same. They're all like 5'10", 5'11", 6-foot guys that like aren't really that big. So it might be good to add a big body. If we get two defensemen in the first round, and the first one is one of these, Karls, Verhoff, Schmitz guys who are better at like skating, shooting, offensive talent, I would be a very, very, very happy guy. That seems like a huge W first round draft for me in terms of the future, in terms of doing things correctly, not being desperate. Now, if they are desperate, we'll have to evaluate what that move was like, but hopefully they just chill and just keep the future in mind, in my opinion.
Well, you gotta think too that if we had our way, at least we'd probably be saying goodbye to Mr. Alexiak. So we need a big body to come in and replace that outgoing one.
He doesn't need to be 6'7". Okay, he can be 6'4". Okay, he doesn't need to be. Or okay, never mind, 6'8".
Yeah, no, but no, I completely agree with what you're saying, because you also have to look at it in a way that, like, a lot of these, I would say, like the way this draft is looking is you got McKenna and you got Stenberg. Like, those two guys are both NHL ready. After that, a lot of these guys that are going to be in are going to be guys that are going to college. Like, most of these guys are playing in the in the CHL. but a
Yeah.
lot of them are going to college. So like a lot of them are going to be, playing for 1 or 2 years in the college level. And that fits the narrative for the Kraken, in my opinion. Like because the only way that I would even consider like if we did a trade with Dunn and like say like that seventh pick and we got the second overall pick and we drafted Stenberg, awesome. But I definitely think that this team needs to focus more on the defensive side of things, like Derek was mentioning, because our pool is not so deep in terms of
Yeah.
like who we have, but also we're not in a like in my opinion, we're not in a win now. Like that's not where we're in.
I think the
Like
ownership would beg to
yeah, the
differ with you.
ownership is 100%, but like why
This
not like
this
draft
team is this team is one middle six forward away
this
from a
team?
Stanley Cup lock.
This
Okay.
team couldn't make the friggin' playoffs in the worst specific division in history. But yeah, one middle six guy. But honestly, like, get the defenseman if that's what's gonna happen, and just build your prospect pool up because
Yeah,
sweet Jesus, we need that badly.
absolutely.
So if we
What
were
do you?
going to do some wheeling and dealing, the teams above us that those deals have to be made with. At the top, you have Toronto. No way that's happening. San Jose's second. Vancouver's third. They are in the most dire of dire straits, so they got to probably stick to that one. Then we have Chicago, the Rangers, and the Flames above us. And we have a decent little trade history with the Rangers, so maybe
Oh
we
yeah, we
can
do.
bump some elbows there and uh,
Can they?
start
Can
aging the
they?
Rolodex.
Can they take Lindgren back? And give us their pick because that would be sweet.
That
I
would be
don't think that's
sweet.
gonna happen.
All right, so we'll just wait and see. The draft is on the 26th of June, I believe. So we'll be strapped in and ready to go for that and see what the future looks like for our guys. Find a little bit of Kraken news that I wanted to touch on is that Aesthetics, the pretty legitimate leak source of all things hockey jerseys, released a video today detailing the leaks so far for next season's hometown remix jerseys. There were full jersey leaks that came out for the Islanders and the Panthers that have come out, but for right now, all of the aesthetics has to claim for the Kraken is that they'll have a primarily navy color scheme, which is a bit of a bummer, but we'll have to wait and see what the actual design of it turns out to look like. The two that did come out for the Panthers and the Islanders are pretty bold and exciting. So fingers crossed, maybe we can get something exciting to, you know, put in my closet and have my wife get mad at me even more that I got another hockey jersey.
Can you imagine it's just like the retro jersey, just like reinforced? Be like,
Or
hey,
just
we
inverted.
yeah,
It's
it's like
just
we brought the retro jersey back, but we just switched it up. I'd be like, really?
they they add
We're
they
never
add
gonna
a,
win a game.
they add another stripe to it. That's how they do.
yeah. And then some Kraken adjacent news, just some real quick hits here. The Coachella Valley Firebirds have unfortunately been eliminated from the Calder Cup playoffs after falling to the Colorado Eagles in the Pacific Division Finals. Standout performances for the team go to Oscar Fisker Molgard, who Derek mentioned earlier, who had 11 points, as well as J.R. Avon, who, like, this dude just popped right up on my radar. I remember at the start of the season, we're like, oh, cool, we traded away Tucker Robertson or whoever it was to this guy, whatever, just gonna be a Firebird. But this dude, him and OFM tied and were leading. It's not gonna probably hold now that they've been knocked out, but 7 goals in the playoffs. So I don't know. This Avon guy seems pretty sweet. I wouldn't mind if he came knocking at the Kraken's door.
Oh
See
yeah,
what I did there?
absolutely.
See what I did there? Alex got what I did
Wait,
there.
knocking.
Yeah, like
Wait,
the Avon lady that would come around selling
I
stuff.
don't know what Avon is.
Oh, it must be a
Canadian?
Canadian thing.
Yeah, it must be.
Oh wait, is that like makeup?
Is it a Canadian thing?
I feel like it's a boomer. I feel like it's a boomer thing. I
We're
feel like
not
Americans talk about Avon, but
You're calling us boomers. We're in our 30s. Come on.
hey, anyone over 32 is basically like,
An Avon lady is a colloquial term for a female sales representative who sells beauty, skincare, and household products
oh
directly
my.
for the direct sales
Oh,
company
what a
Avon.
last name to have, man.
Yeah, but in terms of Avon, he's still young, so he could still develop into a half decent player, play on the third, fourth line. I OFM is the guy I'm so excited about. Like he just took off during the playoffs, and Matt, you kind of mentioned it's probably not going to hold him being the top point
Yeah,
player in
absolutely
the
not.
playoffs, but like have yourself a playoffs. Like he did
Yeah.
fantastic, and the Firebirds did a great job. Ultimately they just fell flat against Colorado, and you know since they've come into since they became the Firebirds, they have not missed the playoffs. So they're always a contending team in the AHL, and that gives me a lot of like positive because this team this year was a bunch of young players. So that's a lot of like that's a lot of optimism that I have for the Kraken moving forward, is that if they develop these guys properly, you're going to start having that pool of players that you can rely upon if stuff goes south. You can call up guys like OFM, or even Avon, or the likes of Yager Furcus. These
Yep.
guys are going to be able to come up and play meaningful games in the NHL with the Kraken.
Yeah, Avon, he's about to be 23. He had 10 goals and 14 assists in 45 games with Coachella in the regular season. But as Matt said, he scored 7 goals and 1 assist in 12 games of the playoffs. He's an undrafted guy. His like draft era was right around like right after like COVID, stuff like that. So he's an undrafted guy, and he's an RFA this offseason, actually. So if the Kraken are able to sign him for cheap, he might be a guy to like that we should definitely like keep an eye on. It almost kind of feels to me how like Ty Cartier at one point was like a guy to keep an eye on when he was with Coachella, and he's also undrafted, but like he's not to Ty Cartier level yet in terms of production. But I just want to say with the playoffs that he had, I mean, Ty Cartier's Coachella Valley playoff year, the same season he played in the Kraken playoff year, he had 6 goals in 18 games, and Avon had 7 in 12. So, I mean, that's probably something to be excited about. And as Matt said, all we had to give up was Tucker Robertson. And guess what? Tucker Robertson has 4 career AHL playoff games with 0 points. Okay. So I think Avon's the W here.
Absolutely. I'm gonna be hopeful that we keep John Randall around for a little while. That just in
Oh,
case you're
John
wondering, that's what
Randall.
JR stands for, is John Randall Avon. All right, and then in baby squid news, so working even farther down the ladder, Julius Miettinen and the Everett Silvertips won the WHL playoffs and are on their way. Well, I guess they're in there currently because it's happening right now. The Memorial Cup. Miettinen was named playoffs MVP after recording 14 goals and 13 assists in 18 games played. And one of the teams that they'll meet in the Memorial Cup is QMJHL champion. Jeez, pray for me here. Chicoutimi Saguenayens. There's accents in there that makes it French, featuring defenseman Alexis Bernier, who has just been signed to a 3-year ELC. So the future is looking bright as well for the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, Miettinen is a guy to be excited about. I really like the fact that when we did draft him, but he's someone I think who's really coming into his own, and I believe he'll be playing with the Firebirds next year. So that's a name to keep an eye out on next season. And then Alexis Bernier as well. Really stoked to have him sign his 3-year entry level contract, which I think is $1 million now, which is
Yeah, it's
insane.
just
Like
just over 1 million.
that's insane. That's one thing. But yeah, we kind of mentioned the whole defensive prospect pool. He's someone to keep an eye out on. He really took off with Shikutami this year. And that's good to know. So Memorial Cup will be interesting. You have to keep an eye on some of your some of the fellow Kraken prospects. And yeah, it's good times for those guys. And hopefully we can see them, if it works out, they'll be playing in a final against each other.
Yeah, I mean, so consensus seems to be that like, oh, like the Kraken do really have like a top 10 prospect pool. Like, there are a lot of guys to be excited about. I think we're ranked seventh by that one dude. But I also just wanted to say I find it kind of funny that there's this whole region inside your guys' country in Canada. For everyone listening that doesn't know, these other two guys are up in Canada. I find it funny that you have a whole region of your country where you guys can't even like pronounce the cities or the names or like what people are saying. And it almost reminds me of like the American South where like you can't understand like those accents or whatever. Like that's what it feels like to me. But that was just a tangent that I wanted to say.
Hey, Yeah, you know what? There's portions of Quebec that will be confusing. Like I've gone through Quebec multiple times. Montreal, easy. They speak French and English, and like if you have like even a brief understanding of French, you can get by. If you go to Quebec City, like good luck. Good luck.
The Yanni Gord French Canadian accent is like the hardest thing to understand of any accent that exists.
Yeah, it's up
There's
there.
yeah, there's a couple. But then like you can go like to Alberta or like northern Alberta and you'll speak to somebody and you're like, "What?" Or like go to Newfoundland, you'll be like, "What?" It's just wild. So, but hey, we're all Canadians.
So just did a quick look see here. The Silvertips and Chicoutimi did play against each other yesterday. It was a 5-3 win for the Silvertips.
Let's go.
Miettinen did not show up on the score sheet, but Bernier did have 1 assist. So good things there. The Stanley Cup Playoffs are here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has a new customer offer. When the ice gets coldest, the best players in the world show you exactly who they are. Playoff warriors turn it up round by round, and DraftKings turns it up with them from the first round all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Bet player props, bet live from the opening faceoff to the final horn. Every moment matters. New DraftKings customers bet just $5 and you'll get $100 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN so you're ready for the moment. That's code THPN. Turn $5 into $100 in bonus bets instantly. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer.
And with that, we have unloaded 4.5 weeks worth of news, and it is time to get into our top 5 stories of the Kraken season. Starting with, you guessed it, number 5. The Lane Lambert era begins. On May 25th, 2025, Lane Lambert was named as the new head coach of the Seattle Kraken. This marked the franchise's 3rd coach in 3 years. His hiring came after a season and a half as the Islanders bench boss and 1 season as associate coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. During his time with the Islanders, Lambert had time working with Seattle captain Jordan Eberle, a connection which helped with the transition to his new club. Lambert entered the locker room with a defense-first mindset, and it showed with this team in many ways. In his first season with the Kraken, Lambert's squad experienced considerable ups and downs, often fluctuating between winning and losing streaks. In the end, he finished his first season with the team with a record of 34, 37, and 11. During exit interviews with the team, many of the players had praise for Coach Lambert and the system he put in place. Most notable, and I think one that made us laugh, was from goaltender Philipp Grubauer, who said, "Last year under Balsma, I don't know what system we had, if there even was a system," end quote. So just fighting words out of the German gentleman's mouth. Lambert survived his Kraken coaching curse and will be back next season. So it'll be exciting to see what this team might achieve with some consistency behind the bench and the systems being put in place. How did you guys feel about Mr. Lambert joining this team?
Yeah, I'm absolutely pumped that he's going to be back. I mean, look, he is a defensive focused coach. And I think he did wonders for our defense this season, at least the first half of the season. And maybe there can be some things that are implemented this offseason that further enhance it. He seems to be a guy who does know how to operate the defense in NHL, which is that does have value. Okay. It blew my mind to hear Gruby saying that about Bilesma, because I just always assume that these coaches are always doing the perfect stuff. Right. And they're all interchangeables. To hear that an NHL starting goaltender or backup goaltender did not understand what sort of defense was running, it just boggles my mind. But some of our players, Dunn has been mentioned a lot, but some of our players might not fit his ideal system. But I think that is the beauty of keeping a coach around for more than a season. When you have a specialized coach, they can help your team build an identity. And let me just tell you this. there's absolutely no way that Lane Lambert looks at the offensive numbers this season, all of which were near the bottom of the league, and says, "Oh yes, this worked great. Let's do everything the exact same way." Absolutely not. There's positively no way that he does that. You would have to be legitimately insane. So I think there will be some changes in that regard as well, and hopefully some personnel changes as well to help Lane achieve his vision. And I want Lane to show us how much he can cook next year. Hashtag let Lane cook, baby. Let's go.
So I was at the start of the season, I was optimistic. I didn't really know what I was going to expect from Lambert. I was pleasantly surprised because, like, when you really look at it, this Kraken team, considering they were filled with middle six guys, were in a playoff spot for a good portion of the season. And as Derek mentioned, defensively, we were pretty defensively sound. Goaltending was there, but then defensively, we were doing fantastic. Offense was, not there, but that's been something that we've been highlighting for a couple seasons now. Ultimately, when everything kind of fell off and the wagon collapsed and whatnot, Lane Lambert did mention, he goes, I'm just doing what I can with what I have. And when I look at this team and I look at what Lambert did, he did fantastic, because when you really are looking at what we have as, as a lineup and as a roster, it's hard asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars. It really is. And Lambert was able to do what he could. And, for a good portion of the season, he was successful. As Derek mentioned, I completely agree. I think there's going to be a lot of overhaul. I don't think he's going to go into next season going, the offense, we're going to keep doing the same thing, because clearly it didn't work. So he's going to, he's going to evolve his offense. So hopefully with that, we can have more of a successful offensive season. But if we bring in a couple new defensemen, maybe that will help, create a stronger, core back there that can help, both Grubauer and Decord, or whichever goaltender is back there. But ultimately, I think, getting Lambert a second season is fantastic. I was concerned that the organization was going to let him go at some point, but you got to give your coaches a chance. So with that, I'm pretty happy to see this, moving forward. We're gonna have Lambert behind the bench, and hopefully he can string some chemistry with the offense, as well as generate some some ideas that will give us the ability to be a more offensive driven team.
Yeah, if there are zero changes to that offense, he's gone.
If that's the case, he's done by December, like Christmas, like he's out of here. That's because, like, if we cannot have another season of lackluster offense, because it was just abysmal.
Well, we'll have to just see what happens. We got a lot of hopefully old guys on their way out. We can usher in kind of a new wave of people, or maybe pick up someone in, albeit a shallow free agent pool, to kind of bring a little spice to this. And we are getting a new person on the coaching staff, so who knows how that person's going to contribute and chip in on those pieces. Moving along to number 4. This one is a bit of a bummer. It is the post-Olympic collapse. Compared to other teams around the league, the Kraken's attendance at the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan was relatively low, with only Capo Kakko and Eli Tolvanen suiting up for Team Finland and prospect Oscar Fisker Molgaard for Team Denmark. In theory, this should have been great for the Squids. 3 weeks off to recover from any nagging injuries, enjoy some time off from the rink with a tropical vacation, or just relax at home with family in the Pacific Northwest. In the 24 games before the break, the Kraken had a record of 15-6-3 and were sitting in third place in the Pacific Division. All they had to do was finish what they started, and they'd be in the Stanley Cup Playoffs for the second time in franchise's brief history. What ended up happening was instead a complete collapse. With 26 games left to go, the team ended the season with a stretch of 7-17-2. Despite the addition of forward Bobby McMahon at the trade deadline, who went on to have 10 goals in 18 games, the team just could not chain together enough wins to reach the playoffs, and when the season mercifully came to an end, the Kraken finished 6th worst in the entire league. This collapse was nothing short of catastrophic. I'm sure there's many other colorful adjectives that you could attribute to it. We were sitting pretty and ready to make our second ever playoffs, only to land at the bottom of the standings. What do you think was the root cause of failure, and how can we avoid that next season?
The root cause of failure is that ownership thought this was a playoff team from the get-go. Because like if you go back to our previous podcast, like the three of us were, talking about how, what the Kraken are doing is not something that can continue on all season. There were massive red flags everywhere. And, fans saw it. Like if you go on Kraken Twitter, fans saw it everywhere, being like, this needs to be sorted out. This needs to be sorted out. This needs to be sorted out. And it just was completely like ignored or abandoned. And then, I think everyone was kind of feeling optimistic to a point where when the Olympic break happened, they were like, hey, we're sitting pretty. We don't need to win many more games realistically to secure a playoff spot, especially in this division. And Matt said it perfectly. It was catastrophic. Like it was horrible. I like the fact that like we came back from, the Olympics and then we're like, well, we're going to trade for players that are going to better our team, but we're not going to get rid of players that we could get some form of return. It just seemed really negligent, in my opinion. Like there's a lot of things that this team could have done, which they chose not to do. And then now we're going to watch a bunch of these guys walk for free. We finished sixth worst in the league. We're going to be picking the seventh pick because, like, hey, not only are we going to fall off a cliff, miss the playoffs, but we're going to finish sixth and still draft lower than what we finished. Thanks, Toronto. It's just this whole season needs to be studied by sports analysts because it just shows you that like it can happen to anyone, but also like there are so many red flags, like so many that again we all saw, but it was apparent that management and ownership decided to ignore.
I think the Kraken ownership I think they were following Kraken Canada on Twitter and seeing all the posts of the Kraken being a wagon, up to halfway through the season. And they're like, oh my God, Alex from Kraken Canada thinks we're a wagon. We could go all the way this year.
Believed it.
Let's build the team, man. I
believed it.
I think that's a bit of revisionist history. I think the first 30 games, the fan base at large was like, holy shit, how is this team doing this? Like, how are we this good? And I believe on the pod, it was referred to as like the Cinderella story, right? And it really feels like two vastly different seasons, like two different campaigns, because they honestly were. And I've kind of deleted that first like 30 game stretch from my memory. I don't really remember that, but when I think back, I remember working those games and it felt like things were just miraculously happening. Like we would always get the comeback goal. We would always force overtime. We would always, come out of it with a point. We had an insane points percentage.
Win a back-to-back.
Yeah. Yeah. And the next campaign felt like a team that had never played hockey together in their entire lives. At the end of the day, I think the root problem this season can really be chalked up, and we said this all year on the pod, is horrendous, insanely bad offense. Insanely bad offense. Offense is what it is. It's really a shame that there was such an egregious collapse near the end, especially with how bad the Pacific Division was. It was historically abysmal, and it was just begging for the Kraken to even lead the division near the end. It was like, Kraken, you guys can lead the Pacific Division with like 30 games, 25 games left. And instead it's like, oh no, I'd rather go like, 7-19 to close out. So I don't really know if you can blame ownership or management when it's like, oh my God, guys, like 30 games left. The whole division collapsed. Like let's keep all of our guys on the team right now and let's like get into the playoffs, basically coast in. And then the team's like, yeah, we could coast in, or we could collapse like the rest of the Pacific Division. We're gonna collapse like the rest of the Pacific Division. So I don't know, man. I'm not a fortune teller. I didn't see the Kraken going 7-19 to close out, especially the way Bobby McMahon was playing. I was like, holy shit, we're actually gonna make it. Even up until like near the end, I still thought we were gonna make it. Then again, I'm like the most optimistic person of all time, apparently. But Man, we were a wagon, okay? We were a wagon.
If you want like the bird's eye view of how this season went, like say this is your first time, you're a new Kraken fan, you somehow stumbled here.
I
First of
love
all,
this.
welcome. Thanks for coming by btwsca.com and clicking that listen now link. Take a look back. This season started at episode 40, and just you can just read the titles and see how the season trended. We started off with are the Seattle Kraken good? And then we had the Seattle Kraken are point earning machines,
I
and
remember this.
the Seattle Kraken's hot start, and it was we were coasting, we were feeling great. And then we have the worst game in Kraken history question mark exclamation, and is the Cinderella story over? So there you go.
There we
Good
go.
comprehension on your titles. And then we have Kraken streaks. We're back. Immediately followed by, oh no, the Kraken are bad again. And it's just to steal a trademark from the Kraken pod of the Kraken coaster. We were all over that thing. We had the fast pass, the lightning lane, and we were riding that thing as much as possible. I think if you took our first few minutes of each pod when we had the money puck around and find out, you could see just the roller coaster of trend that we were on, where we were going up and we were feeling good. And I want to tool around in Excel and see if I can make that graph of how we shot up so well towards the start, and then just the log ride took us down, and we were not very happy on the post ride picture that we got from the gift shop. It was not a good time. So hopefully we have some good titled pods next season, and we kind of lose out on that awfulness.
On the money puck around, I still remember like just before the break being like, we're at 74%. We're gonna make the playoffs. Let's go. And then we came
are
back
a
and
wagon.
it was like a week and a half after of like, we're sitting at 21%.
Remember preseason when we're like, we haven't even played a game yet, and they already have us at like 34%. Maybe they know what they're
I
talking
think it was
about.
below that. It was like 20 something at one point, being like, the puck hasn't dropped. And Money Puck is like, yeah, it ain't happening, bro. It ain't happening.
I could never.
All right, for story 3, I'm going to hand things off to Derek because this one is much more in his wheelhouse.
I'm nervous. Okay, guys. So, I have a unique way of telling this story, okay? On October 9th, let's take it back to October 9th of 2000.
You're not going to say number 3 is this.
Oh, sorry. I'm not used to being host, okay? All right, the number 3 story is none other than Philly Grew Steaks Resurgence. Grew's Resurgence, okay? Let's take it back to October 9th of 2024. We're going way back. I said on Twitter, I'm not blinded, just optimistic. I am predicting Philipp Grubauer will have a better season than Joey, though, simply due to randomness of goalies being good and bad. That did not happen that year, okay? Joey was way better than Grew last season. And to reflect that, on November 30th of 2024, I said, the objective measure of team defense I use, I bet you guys can all guess it. It's expected goals against, okay? Which is why I think this suggests Grew played awfully. So I'm being consistent, okay? I'm not just like some Grew lover who's irrational. I use this standard for evaluation of all goaltending, defense, offense play, okay? June 27th of 2025, I said, this is last offseason. I said, it doesn't make sense for GM Jason Botterill to buy Grubauer out. Buying out Grew and getting a new goalie would leave us in the same spot. It's best to bet on Grubauer bouncing back from some horrible and unlucky outings. If he shits himself again this year, buy him out. If he is serviceable and there's no playoffs, trade him. I said that in response to none other than Alex Kraken Canada. Boy, was Grubauer serviceable. In fact, this season was his first season since 2020 that he had at least a 900 save percentage, and thus was his first time doing so as a Kraken. At 34 years old, he took an 875 save percentage and a 3.49 goals against average last year and said, no, I am not done. You're not relegating me to the Coachella Valley Firebirds. This is not some Matt Murray shit. He fought his ass off this year and clawed his way back to greatness, showcasing he can still play like a top 32 goalie in the league posting a 909 save percentage and an elite 2.65 goals against average. For some context, on a stat called goals saved above expected, which I live and die by, it calculates how often people score from the same location and from the same quickness, from a lateral pass, etc., as everyone for the past several years, and calculates how many goals should have been scored compared to what that goalie allowed. Last season, Decord was 8th in the stat, and Grubauer was 64th in the stat. Okay, this season, Joey ended up all the way back at 45th, and Grubauer shot up to 22nd in the league with 5.7 goals saved above expected. To have such a bounce back at this age, with everyone counting him out, is truly remarkable. Matt, I don't know how this is not the number one story, Matt. That's the only thing I'm upset with you about. It's remarkable. It's inspirational. It should make you hopeful as a Kraken fan. More than this is possible. Hey, our abysmal offense could turn it around. You never know. This 34-year-old goalie who everyone wrote off turned it around. And while I was a year off on Grubauer surpassing Joey's performance and reclaiming his throne, this was an off season for Joey Decord, okay? Next season, if we have a back to greatness self, Joey, and this new and improved Grubauer, our management will look like delayed onset geniuses with the tandem that we'll be stunning the entire league with, okay? So that's going to be amazing. How do you guys feel about Philly Grewsteak's resurgence?
I'll be positive because I said at the start of the season I was not going to be as critical on the goaltenders as I have in the past. And I was pretty positive even when they weren't so good some nights. So I'll say that and I'll take that to my grave. I was relatively positive. When it comes to Grubauer, yeah, he shut me up because he did great and he was exceptional in the crease, and Joey did not play as exceptional as he's done in the past. I will continue to say that goalies are voodoo. Like, we don't know what we're going to expect from most goaltenders. Like, you got a couple goaltenders that are just absolutely quality. But in the case of Grew's, resurgence, hats off to the guy. He's, as Derek would put him, out to pasture. There we go. So yeah, he had that resurgence, and that's great to see. I'm going to remain optimistic for next season because, as I said, goalies are voodoo. Derek, I appreciate the optimism in the sense that, like, hey, we're gonna have a great tandem between Decord and Grew. I hope to God you're right. At the end of the day, I'm not so confident, but yeah, hats off to Grubauer. He didn't have to bide his time in Coachella. He was able to take hold of that tandem piece with Seattle and ran with it. So who's to say if we were able to muster a couple more wins, and I'm not even going to blame this season on the goaltending because they did keep us in it. So if the offense can figure it out, boom, we're laughing. So hats off to Philly Grewsteak. I'll use the nickname that Derek has given him and say, you did good.
Philly Grewsteak, baby.
The one biggest positive I take out of this, and Philipp Grubauer coming back to being back to stud status, is his value is going up for being able to maybe put him in a little trade to move off to somewhere, because we know that Nicky Coco is getting pretty close to being able to come up and serve as the backup to Joey. So if we can get Philipp Grubauer to be shipped off to another team in return for something pretty favorable to us, that'd be a pretty sweet turnaround compared to where we were 2 seasons ago with him.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right, onwards to our penultimate story number 2 for the Seattle hockey season. I said Seattle hockey because story number 2 is the emergence of the Seattle Torrent. The Seattle Kraken are no longer the only professional ice hockey team that call Climate Pledge Arena home. This season, we got to welcome the Seattle Torrent of the PWHL to the ice. Before the season started, everyone was feeling very high on this team. It was a squad of absolute superstars, having drafted the likes of Hillary Knight, Alex Carpenter, and Hannah Bilka. The dream team was assembled, the crowds were ready, but unfortunately, the results and dominant performances that everyone expected did not come to fruition. As mentioned at the top of the show, the Torrent finished the season in dead last with a record of 8-5-1-16. Record aside, however, there were still many things for Torrent fans to be excited about and pleased of this season. First, the biggest shout out has to go to the Torrent fans. You showed up. CPA consistently had the highest attended games in the league, and on 3 different occasions, the Torrent were involved in setting the U.S. women's pro hockey attendance record. The final record setting game was played against the New York Sirens in a milestone game at Madison Square Garden. Alex Carpenter turned out to be the star of the team. She led the Torrent with 12 goals and 8 assists, suiting up for all 30 games. And although the team's first round draft pick, Jenna Buglioni, did not have a great season while dealing with injuries, second round pick Hannah Murphy, who I mentioned at the top, quickly became a crowd favorite. CPA often echoed with chants of Murphy, 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 and it just came blasting through my TV speakers. While there was a lot to be pumped about, there is a lot of uncertainty on the horizon. The Torrent will likely undergo some drastic change over the next month as expansion teams are filled, free agents are signed or let go, and prospects are drafted. If there's anything we learned from the Seattle Kraken, it's that the first season is rough, and the second one is where we make the playoffs, baby.
I love that. Hopefully, the third and the fourth and the fifth don't follow the Seattle Kraken. Um, but yeah, I mean, having gone to I think 3 or 4 Torrent games, working them on their ice crew this year, Matt was absolutely correct. The fan, and we talked about this with Zame as well. The fan in Zame was at a lot of Torrent games, I think, this year, if not all of the home games. Right? Is he? Was he? You think he? Okay, yeah. So he said it too. The crowd was absolutely electric. And Zame agreed with this. Sorry, I say Zame like every two seconds right now. But Zame did agree with this, that like the crowds for Torrent games are like as loud, it seems like, as the playoff games for the Kraken. It's crazy. You have to go to a game. It's insane. And I'm super stoked, as I said, about what could be potential for next year. With the new coach shaking things up, hopefully that'll be good. But yeah, it was electric, regardless of them having sort of a Seattle Kraken-esque inaugural season. Sometimes just has to happen. A lot of these players need to mesh together. And hopefully a lot of that meshing happens in this offseason and they hit the ground running next year and absolutely clobber all of their opponents. Okay, that's all we're hoping for.
It was fantastic to see, Seattle have, the Torrent play. That's one thing that I was super excited about. And, ultimately at the end of the day, even though the record didn't reflect what I believe this roster can do, it's only year one. We've seen plenty of times, in not only hockey, but sports around the world, that sometimes your first season isn't your best. And that's one thing I'm going to always, look at as a positive. I also think the Torrent are in a better position than the Kraken are. And I definitely think this is just a glitch in the matrix. And I think the turnaround on this team is going to be something quite shocking, not only, to the fan base, but also to the PWHL as a whole. I definitely think that the Torrent next season are going to compete and be a very competitive team. So I think that's something to be excited about. And hopefully, that does come to fruition. But ultimately, yeah, the fan base is definitely number one for me. Being here in Canada, I don't get the opportunity to travel to Seattle, mainly because I'm on the East Coast and tickets cost literally an arm and a leg. Being able to witness the volume that this fan base has given, to players within the CPA was just something that I've really never witnessed. I still remember, the Kraken being in the playoffs and how loud the CPA was then. But whenever the Torrent played at the CPA, it seemed like it was that level or even louder. So that's just something to be extremely excited about, because that doesn't just fall off a cliff. That just continues on, and the fan base that they do have is only going to grow. So there's a lot of positive. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen, but I think the outlook and the future of this organization is going to be something that we'll be discussing for a long time.
I mean, like, I'm talking like you might have hearing loss, and there were 0 goals for the Torrent in the entire game. That's the level that this is at. It's it's pretty remarkable, honestly. I honestly don't know if it'll last more than an inaugural season because that is unreal to me. I don't think you have NHL stadiums anywhere, NHL arenas anywhere where your home team gets shut out and there are still moments in the game where you can't hear yourself think. Like that's unreal to me. That's just so great, so special.
Normally it's the opposite because the booing is so loud you can't hear yourself think. Not cheering, like that's the difference.
Yeah.
Like if you're being shut out, the Kraken have a very they know that feeling all too well. It was either two things you're getting during a shutout that the Kraken were enduring. It was either loud boos or it was like a cemetery. So the Torrent being Torrent fans being able to cheer even though their team was losing or being shut out, just incredible. Like that's the fan base you want to follow.
Yeah, I've loved diving headfirst into PWHL in the same way that I did with the Kraken, and following it super close is especially easy since it's such a small league with only 8 teams. It was easy to follow along with the standings, and then when the gold plan was coming around, we still had something to root about. Depending on how the team was going to do. And then we got kind of the rug pulled out from under us, maybe a little bit, with them saying, oh, well, the gold plan guarantees number one. And now we're kind of ambiguously left with what's going to happen with number two. So hopefully we find that out soon.
We got to be getting number 2. There's no way.
God, we gotta. I'm going to riot if the expansion teams get to pick before us after suffering all season. But we'll just have to see. I'm very excited for what next season holds. I'm hoping that even if they slow down with the expansion well, first of all, I hope they slow down with the expansion for a couple years to let, feet get set and start actually building up rosters and stuff like that. But I do hope that the takeover tour is still a thing to give other people a chance to take in all of these teams. I know a lot of people were upset that the two of the teams, San Jose and Vegas, weren't part of the takeover tour and why do they deserve a team and all that kind of stuff. But there's lots of politicking and ownership groups wanting to have their hands in the pot and all that kind of stuff that didn't make it come to fruition. But hopefully some neutral site games can still happen, that the Torrent can be exposed to other fan bases, and more importantly, other fan bases can be exposed to the Torrent. That'll be very exciting times. Before we get into our final story, Derek and I have compiled a little rapid fire list of some honorable mentions for things that didn't make the cut. So I will rattle these off. If you have something to say, you are limited to one sentence of response to it. First of all, honorable mention number 1, Berkeley Catton debuts.
Catton's dope.
Honorable mention number 2, in quotes, play the rookies, angry face.
Still play the damn rookies.
Third, Bobby McMahon joins the team.
Sweet Jesus, if you let him walk, I will rage absolute hell.
Best scorer on the team.
Derek put this one in. 10 of the first 22 games going to overtime.
Yeah, that's how we got so many points at the beginning of the season.
Hashtag Kraken shit.
Next one, Derek underlined this one. Abyss jerseys.
Yeah, because absolutely fire. But I was also thinking about how a lot of our losses this year were from the Abyss jerseys, and then I looked, and you had already written down Abyss jerseys, so I just underlined it because I'm like, I'm also writing it down.
3-for-1 bargain deal.
Yes, shout out to Cool Hockey and their elite level screw up that resulted in that happening.
IYK.
And lastly, broken curses, and I put these into 3 different things. The curse of the back-to-back was broken. The alt jersey curse was broken because we were able to get some wins in the Abyss jerseys, and we finally won some games on Saturdays. We won some games for the kids.
Maybe next year we'll break the curse of the mid.
All right, and lastly, our final number 1 ranked story of the season. So long, Ron Francis. It was the announcement that Kraken fans around the world have been waiting for. The Seattle Kraken and Ron Francis are parting ways. After years of pre-planning, expansion drafting, general managing, and president of hockey operationsing, the Ron Father's tenure has come to an end. Since the team's inception, the Seattle Kraken have amassed a record of 176, 190, and 44, with one playoff appearance. The team has also cycled through 3 coaches in 5 seasons. This announcement was a very welcome change in direction for fans, as we now wait to see what types of changes are actually made. At the end of the season, Kraken CEO Todd Leiweke revealed that the organization would be undergoing an independent audit pretty recently here. Fans long wondered if GM Jason Botterill was really manning the controls of the team, or if he was merely a puppet for Ron Francis. So we'll just need to cross our fingers that with Francis completely out of the picture, the Seattle Kraken will be able to head in a new direction. We talked about this pretty extensively in our last episode with Zame on, so I don't think we need to go too deep into it, but R.I.P. Ron
yeah.
Francis.
I agree with you. We don't need to go too deep into it. I just want to say along the lines of this point, I actually wanted to give a massive shout out to Zame Begg of Davy Jones Locker Room and Locked On Kraken. He's doing both, which is just insane. Coming out with if you haven't checked out Locked On Kraken, go check it out. It's on YouTube. They come out with he comes out with a 35-minute episode like every single day on the Kraken. So you just always have Kraken content. He was actually on the pod with us during our last recording 17 million years ago. And anyways, Zane provided a great breakdown of the firm that is leading the Kraken audit, which is called Sportsology. And for NHL, from what Zane gathered, they've only worked with the Chicago Blackhawks in the NHL, and they mainly work with NFL and NBA teams in the past. I'm excited by the fact that our organization is looking to get an outsider perspective, like outside of the NHL entirely, since the NHL can be a very private and a very elitist feeling league that may be more traditional, and they're less committed to facts and reason. I don't know. I find it unlikely that we're going to know anything that comes from the audit, other than, as Zane mentioned, if people get fired, then we'll probably know that that probably came up in the audit. But only time will tell if this audit will bear fruit. I am hoping to God it does. So let's go, Sportsology. Make us good.
Quick little blurb on Ron Francis. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Horrible choice to lead the Kraken from the start of all this. I don't know why they ended up choosing him in the first place, mainly because, the Carolina Hurricanes were abysmal, to say the least. And that was his creation. So, did basically the same thing with the Kraken. Ultimately after that, was not shocked that he was let go, so to speak, or parting ways. But I honestly jumped out of my chair when I read that initially at the start of when the announcement first happened. I was so excited. But yeah, with the independent audit, I'm so interested to see how things kind of turn out. I'm hoping it's not we get I'm hoping we get a lot more information about on ice as well. My biggest concern is that they're going to be looking at a lot of internal stuff that doesn't really have any impact on the ice. So I'm hoping that that's something that does happen, is that, hey, we figured out that, hot dogs are $2 too much, so we knocked down the price for that. So awesome for the fans. But also I do hope that they look at all this and they're like, hey, what you have on the ice is not good enough. We need to do drastic changes, and these are what we would recommend. And I hope that if that's the case, or if they go hey, this guy needs to go, or this guy needs to go, you guys need to clear house here and there. I'm hoping that does happen, but I hope that if it does happen, it's not going to wind up too close to the draft, because I feel like I feel like I've said this before, but I feel like this is a pivotal season for the Kraken. This is a season where I think this team is ultimately going to decide, are they a team that's going to compete, or is this team a bottom feeder? And really make that decision. And we've talked about it. Ownership is definitely in the boat of being that this team is competitive, and a lot of the fan base believes this team is more of a bottom feeder. But I hope they make a clear and concise decision as to what they're going to be. Because right now we don't want to be this mid team. And
I mean, I feel like it can't get. I don't think it can get much worse than this season, which is kind of a good thing. If you made it through this season, it can get to Vancouver or whatever, Vancouver level. But with the way the Kraken are going, I don't foresee that like it's ever gonna be Vancouver level. So if you made it through this season, you're probably fine.
Yeah, but mid is just so mid is just so bad. Like when you're just not good enough to like this season's terrible when you really think about it. It's horrible. Like we weren't good enough to get like a top 5 pick, and we weren't good enough to make it in the playoffs in a horrible, horrible division. So like
Yeah, that's
hopefully
kind
we
of
can.
like the worst. That's like kind of like the worst that you could do.
And as we're recording this, the Vegas Golden Knights have a 3-0 series lead over the Avalanche. Like I want to.
They
Be
won
sick.
again
They
today.
won. They came back. I want to be sick.
Oh,
So like God, I just hope like there's some positive change in this off
Yeah.
season because
To
like I
answer-
think we all need it.
Yeah, to answer what you were talking about with Sportsology, I think at least from my understanding of what Zane was saying, like I said, go check out the article, go check out the Locked On episode. But mainly it's going to be like, hey, like what do you do here? Like they're going to go around to all the staff. What do you actually do here? They compile a report. They're sort of looking at efficiency within the operations of the front office. So not like for hot dog prices, but like the front office as it relates to the team, like the efficiency and how cohesive they are, who's doing what, and then they provide a report to upper ownership, and then they're able to see like, oh, here's where like, you know, in our scouting department there isn't a lot of like communication. We could use like somebody who could communicate that info back, like stuff like that. But like I said, great article, go read it.
Yeah, I'm pumped to see what happens. Like you guys said, it can't get much worse. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But if it does, buckle up for a rocky year of podcast recordings
Oh my
coming from yours
God.
truly. But I am going to, as always around this time, choose to be a little optimistic about the future, that there's still a lot of time for changes to happen. We'll see. I think we'll get a more reasonable barometer of my expectations and hopes and dreams come July 2nd after we hand out maybe some free agent contracts. And depending who walks, we'll just have to wait and see. So that does it. That is our review of the top 5 stories of the 2025-26 Seattle Kraken season. Derek, we talked about all the exciting things off the top, but one more time, if people want to find BTW online, where might people be able to do that?
You can find us at our very own website, btwsea.com. Also, go check out all of our dope merch. Matt just came up with a design, a new one for Jordan Eberle. It has a J and an E that are parts of the anchor, and it's really sick. So go check that out. That is live on the store. You can find the store at btwsea/shop. btwsea/shop. No more
forgot
BIT.
the .com part of the domain there.
.com, btwsea.com/shop. Sorry, I'm new to this website shit. But yes, very own website. Go check it out. Also check out Heather's articles. The link is in the show notes. As usual, follow at Heather Nicole with no E. The link is also, as Matt said, if you just go to the website, btwsa.com, our very own website, very special, very brand new. You go to that website and click where it says Seattle Torrent. Hover over Seattle Torrent, it'll turn light blue. You click it, goes right to Heather's articles. Very sick. Also follow at Heather Nicole with no E and at the Hockey News W online to see more of her work. And please drop a follow and a 5-star review on the podcast app of your choice. It means a lot to us. Also follow us on all socials. It helps us out a whole lot if you could take a second to like or comment on those videos. And all I gotta say is go check out our site. It is really dope, and you can get some dope Kraken merch there if you pay. But until next week, you can find us everywhere at BTWSEA. All right, that is it for us. We'll see you. Wait, also, I just want to say we're so efficient this week. We delivered you like a month's worth of news and all of the Kraken season stories in under an hour and a half. Okay, so that's pretty great. Follow us everywhere at BTWSEA, and we'll be back next week.
Next week.
All right, bye.
We going beneath the waves.